right now, in this very moment, you are having a thought that no one else can hear, or so you believe. What if that belief is one of the most dangerous assumptions you have ever made about your own existence? What if your thoughts, the ones you have never spoken out loud, the ones you have had at 3 a.m. that you would never tell another person, the darkest ones, the most private ones, the ones you barely admit to yourself, what if those thoughts are not contained inside your skull at all? What if they are broadcasting? Right now, in every direction. And what if something, not someone, but something has been receiving that broadcast for your entire life? I am not talking about government surveillance. I am not talking about social media algorithms reading your behavior. I am talking about something far older, far deeper, and far more consequential than any technology that has ever been built by human hands. I am going to tell you today what that something is. I am going to tell you what it does with what it receives. I am going to show you the evidence from physics, from ancient tradition, from documented human experience, and from the patterns of your own life that you have probably never connected. And by the end of this video, you will never think about thinking the same way again. Stay with me, because this one is personal. This one is about you specifically, and what you do with this information could change the entire trajectory of your life. You asked whether your thoughts are truly private. So let me start with what science, actual physics, not philosophy, not spirituality, actual measured, repeatable science, has established about the nature of thought and the nature of reality. In 1944, the father of quantum physics, Max Planck, made a statement that most science textbooks quietly leave out. He said this: "There is no matter as such. All matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force which brings the particles of an atom to vibration and holds the most minute solar system of the atom together. We must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious and intelligent mind. This mind is the matrix of all matter, the man who gave us quantum physics, the framework on which all modern technology, including the device you are watching this on, is built, concluded at the end of his life that behind all physical reality there is a conscious field, a matrix of intelligence, and that matter, everything you can see and touch and measure, emerges from that field rather than the other way around. This was not a spiritual statement. This was a scientific conclusion reached by the most rigorous physicist of his generation after a lifetime of working with the mathematics of reality at its most fundamental level. And the implications of that conclusion are extraordinary. If there is a conscious field that is the matrix of all matter, and if your thoughts are a form of energy, which physics has confirmed they are because the brain generates measurable electromagnetic fields when it thinks, then your thoughts do not stay inside your head. They enter the field. They become part of the field. They interact with the field. This is not metaphor. The electroencephalogram, the EEG machine used in every hospital neurology department on Earth, measures the electromagnetic output of the brain. Your thoughts generate waves. Those waves have frequency, amplitude, and direction. They radiate outward from your skull into the space around you. The only reason mainstream science stops the conversation there is because measuring what happens to those waves beyond a certain distance requires instruments and frameworks that most institutions are not yet willing to build or acknowledge. But the field does not stop receiving just because science stops measuring. In the 1990s, a Princeton University laboratory called the Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Lab, PEER, conducted decades of rigorous experiments studying whether human intention, focused thought, could measurably affect physical systems. Random number generators, electronic equipment producing random outputs with no predictable pattern. Their findings, published in peer-reviewed journals and representing data from millions of trials, showed that human intention consistently and measurably shifted the output of random systems in the direction of the operator's focus. Not dramatically, not in ways that overturned physics, but consistently, measurably, reproducibly, beyond any statistical probability of coincidence. The conclusion of this research is that focused human thought interacts with physical reality at a measurable level. The field is not passive, it responds to what enters it. The Global Consciousness Project, a successor to the PEER research, placed random number generators at locations around the world and monitored their outputs continuously. What they found was that during events of massive global focused attention, The September 11th attacks, the death of Princess Diana, major sporting events watched simultaneously by hundreds of millions of people. The random number generators around the world began producing non-random, ordered outputs, as if the field itself became coherent in response to coherent human attention. The field is listening. That is not a spiritual claim. That is a measured, documented, peer-reviewed scientific finding from one of the most prestigious universities in the world. Now here is the question that follows naturally from this. If the field responds to collective human thought at a measurable level, what is it doing with your individual thought? Every single day, every single private moment, every thought you have ever had that you believed no one could hear. Now I want to answer the question at the center of this directly. What is listening to your thoughts? Because this is where the truth gets layered, and each layer is more important than the last. Level 1. The field itself. The first and most fundamental listener is the field I just described. The conscious matrix that Planck identified and that quantum physics has continued to confirm through findings like entanglement, non-locality, and the observer effect. This field does not judge your thoughts. It does not reward or punish. It simply responds. Like water responds to the shape of what enters it. Like a mirror responds to whoever stands before it. Your thought enters the field, and the field begins to organize itself in correspondence with the frequency of that thought. This is the mechanism behind what human beings have called prayer, intention, manifestation, and curse across thousands of years of spiritual tradition, not because these traditions had access to quantum physics, but because they had access to direct experience of what the field does when you put something into it with intensity and consistency. The field is the first listener, and it is always listening, not sometimes. Not when you are being good, always, to everything, without exception. This means your private resentments are in the field, your secret fears are in the field, your unspoken love is in the field, your 3 a.m. shame spiral is in the field, your quiet gratitude that you never said out loud is in the field. All of it, constantly, building a pattern that the field organizes reality around. This is why the lives of people who have deeply consistent inner states, people who carry genuine peace, or genuine bitterness, or genuine love, or genuine contempt, tend to produce outer realities that mirror those inner states with remarkable consistency. Not because they got lucky or unlucky, because the field is always building the outside to match the inside. Level 2. Other people's nervous systems. The second level of what is listening to your thoughts is something that will make more people uncomfortable than anything in quantum physics, and that is the nervous systems of the people around you. Human beings are not isolated units of consciousness sealed inside separate skulls. We are deeply, biologically, electromagnetically interconnected. The HeartMath Institute's research, which I have mentioned before on this channel, established that the human heart generates an electromagnetic field that extends several feet outside the physical body in all directions. This field carries information. It changes based on your emotional and mental state. And other people's nervous systems read it and respond to it before a single word is spoken. This is why you can walk into a room and immediately feel that something is wrong even before you identify any visible evidence. This is why certain people make you feel safe before they have said anything reassuring. This is why a person carrying deep rage makes everyone around them physically uncomfortable even when that rage is never expressed. The field between people is real. It carries information. And your thoughts, which shape your emotional state, which shapes your electromagnetic field, are being continuously broadcast into the space between you and every person you encounter. People are reading your thoughts, not in words, in frequency, in the information your field carries. And they are responding to that reading in ways neither of you consciously tracks, but that shapes every interaction, every relationship, every opportunity, and every door that opens or closes in your social world, the colleague who inexplicably does not trust you even though you have never wronged them. They are reading your field and finding something that their nervous system flags as misaligned. The stranger who immediately feels drawn to you for no apparent reason. They are reading your field and finding something that resonates with their own frequency. None of this is conscious. All of it is real. And all of it is being driven by the thoughts you are thinking, including the ones you believe are completely private. Level 3. what the ancient traditions described. Now we arrive at the level that makes people most uncomfortable, and the one that has the most consistent documentation across the most cultures over the longest period of time. Every major spiritual tradition on this earth has taught that human thought does not exist in a vacuum, that the mental and emotional field generated by human beings is inhabited, monitored, and in some traditions actively influenced by non-physical intelligences. The Vedic tradition describes beings called devas and asuras, who exist in subtle dimensions adjacent to the physical world and who respond to human thought and prayer. Positive concentrated thought in certain frequencies draws certain categories of being. Thought drenched in fear, hatred, and suffering draws others. The Sufi tradition teaches that the mental world is populated with presences that feed on and are attracted by specific emotional frequencies. Master Sufi teachers spent decades training their students in the discipline of thought specifically because an undisciplined mind, broadcasting chaotic or dark frequencies, was understood to attract chaotic and dark presences. The Gnostic tradition, which we discussed in our last video, described the archons as non-physical intelligences that specifically feed on low-frequency human mental and emotional states. Fear, anxiety, shame, helplessness. These are not just unpleasant experiences in the Gnostic framework. They are broadcast signals that attract and sustain a category of entity that has a direct interest in keeping you generating those frequencies. Indigenous shamanic traditions across Africa, the Americas, and Asia describe the mental field as a space that is never empty. That thought forms once generated do not simply dissolve. They persist. They attract resonant energies. A person who has been thinking a particular pattern of thought for years has literally built a structure in the mental field that draws corresponding influences toward them. These traditions are not describing the same thing in metaphor. They are describing the same observed reality in the language available to their culture and time. And what they are all describing is this: your thoughts are not private because they enter a field that is populated, responsive, and in constant interaction with the non-physical dimensions of existence. What that means practically is something you need to sit with. Every thought of genuine love you have ever had has entered that field and drawn resonant intelligence toward you. And every thought of deep fear, deep hatred, deep shame, deep hopelessness has also entered that field and drawn its own corresponding resonance toward you. This is not punishment. This is not a moral system. This is physics operating at a level that most people were never told exists. Now the thought forms you have already built. Now I want to talk about something that is going to make this very personal, very immediate, and possibly very uncomfortable. In the theosophical tradition of the late 19th and early 20th century, researchers who spent decades in deep meditative and clairvoyant investigation of the mental field described what they called thought forms. The idea that thoughts, when held with sufficient emotional intensity and repeated over sufficient time, do not just enter the field and dissolve. They cohere into persistent structures, energetic formations that exist in the mental field independently of the thinker, that continue to attract resonant energy, that can be added to by the thoughts of others with similar frequencies, that in some traditions are described as taking on a quasi-independent existence. This sounds esoteric until you look at what modern psychology has independently confirmed about the nature of repeated thought patterns. A neural pathway is a physical structure. Every thought you have repeatedly has built a physical groove in your brain's architecture. The more you think a thought, the deeper the groove, the more automatic the thought becomes, the less conscious effort it requires to fire. This is why chronic worriers find that worry happens to them rather than being chosen by them. The pathway is so deep that the thought fires automatically, triggered by the smallest stimulus, consuming enormous mental energy while producing the feeling that the person is not in control of their own mind. What the ancient traditions describe as thought forms in the mental field and what neuroscience describes as deeply grooved neural pathways are describing the same phenomenon from different angles. A thought held long enough and felt deeply enough becomes a structure that has momentum, that self-perpetuates, that shapes perception and experience from the inside out. Now think about the thoughts you have been thinking most consistently for the past year, the past 5 years, the past decade. What structures have you built in the field? What have you been broadcasting consistently, repeatedly, with emotional intensity, into a field that never stops receiving? Most people, when they actually sit with this question honestly, find something sobering. They find that the dominant frequency of their mental life has been anxiety about the future, resentment about the past, fear about their worth, or hopelessness about their capacity to change. Not because they are bad people, but because no one ever told them that their thoughts were building something, that the field was listening, that what they held in private was shaping what appeared in public. You have been building your reality with your thoughts, thought by thought, day by day, year by year, in the privacy of your own mind, where you believed no one could see and nothing could be affected. But the field saw, the field received, and the field built accordingly. So how can you take your mind back? Now here is where this becomes the most important conversation you have ever had about your own mind. Because knowing that something is listening is only useful if it changes what you broadcast. And the first thing I want to say about this is something that most people in the self-help and spirituality space do not say clearly enough. You cannot lie to the field. Forcing positive thoughts over a foundation of unexamined fear does not broadcast positivity. It broadcasts the effort of suppression layered over the fear that is being suppressed. The field reads the deeper signal, not the surface performance. This is why affirmations alone do not work for most people. Because the person saying, "I am abundant" 5 times in the mirror is usually doing it over a nervous system that is vibrating at the frequency of scarcity. And the field hears the scarcity underneath the words. True mental hygiene is not about forcing better thoughts. It is about genuinely clearing the source of the thoughts that do not serve you. Step 1. Become a witness to your own mind. The single most powerful thing you can do right now, today, without any special training or equipment, is to begin watching your thoughts instead of being your thoughts. Most people are so identified with their mental content that they cannot separate themselves from it. They do not have thoughts. They are their thoughts. The angry thought does not arise in their awareness and pass. They become the anger. The fearful thought does not appear and dissolve. They become the fear. They live inside their mental content like a person trapped inside a cinema who has forgotten they are in a cinema and believes the film is real life. The moment you begin to observe your thoughts as events that arise and pass within your awareness, rather than as the definition of who you are, something fundamental shifts. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness in which thoughts appear. That awareness is always present, always undisturbed, always clear. And from that place of witnessing awareness, you have a choice about what you give energy to and what you let pass. This is what every genuine meditation tradition on earth is actually teaching. Not relaxation, not emptiness. The recognition that you are the witness, not the content. That shift alone, practiced consistently, begins to change what you broadcast into the field within weeks. Step 2. Feel the truth instead of thinking the wish. As I have said before on this channel, the field responds to emotional frequency, not to intellectual content. It does not matter what words you think if the emotional signal underneath those words is broadcasting something different. So the practice is not to think better thoughts, it is to genuinely cultivate better feeling states. Gratitude that is actually felt in the body, not listed in a journal with the same energy as writing a grocery list. Actually felt. The kind of gratitude that makes your chest expand and your breath deepen. That frequency is real. That enters the field as a real signal, and the field organizes itself in response to it. Love that is actually directed at something or someone, felt in the body as warmth and expansion. Peace that is genuinely rested into rather than performed. These are not soft suggestions for feeling better about your day. These are the highest frequency broadcasts you are capable of generating, and they draw corresponding realities toward you with the same impersonal reliability as fear draws fear. Step 3. Understand what you are protecting against. If the ancient traditions are correct, and the evidence across thousands of years of consistent documentation suggests they are, then the work of mental discipline is not just about personal well-being. It is about something larger. A human being who has mastered their mental field, who broadcasts coherent, high-frequency thought consistently, is not just happier and more effective in their own life. They are broadcasting a signal into the collective field that raises the frequency of the entire field around them. The research from the Global Consciousness Project suggests that coherent human intention affects the global field measurably, which means every person who does this work is contributing to something beyond themselves. And conversely, a human being who broadcasts chronic low-frequency thought not out of choice, but out of ignorance, out of never having been told that the field is listening, is feeding a collective field of fear and incoherence that affects everyone. This is not about blame. It is about responsibility, the responsibility that comes with knowing the truth. You now know the truth. Your thoughts are not private. Something is always listening. The field receives everything you broadcast. Other people's nervous systems read your signal before you speak. And in dimensions adjacent to the physical, intelligences drawn to specific frequencies respond to what you consistently generate. That knowledge is not a burden. It is a power. Because once you know that your thoughts are not contained, you also know that every genuinely loving, genuinely grateful, genuinely peaceful thought you generate is entering a field that never loses anything, that it is building something, that it matters, that you matter, not just to your own life, but to the field that all human lives swim in together. You came in thinking your thoughts were private, that what happened inside your head stayed inside your head. Here is the truth. Your thoughts are the most powerful broadcast you will ever make. They enter a field that is always receiving. They shape your electromagnetic output that people read before you open your mouth. They build structures in the mental dimension that attract corresponding energies toward you. And they contribute to a collective field that every human being on Earth is swimming in right now. None of this means you should be afraid of your own mind. Fear of your thoughts would simply add more fear to the broadcast. That is not the answer. The answer is awareness. The answer is the recognition that you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that has them. The answer is the daily practice of returning to that awareness, of cultivating states that broadcast frequencies you actually want to live inside, of treating your mental life with the same seriousness you would give to anything else that shapes the world around you. Because it does shape the world around you, more directly, more consistently, and more powerfully than almost anything else you will ever do. The most radical act of self-transformation available to any human being is not a dramatic external change. It is the quiet, daily, courageous decision to become conscious of what you are broadcasting, and to begin, slowly, with compassion for yourself, to broadcast something different. Something is always listening. Make what it hears worth the hearing. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Truth Frequency AI and come back for the next truth, because we have only just started going deep.